What SSB is, according to me, SSBs are way beyond the popular beliefs, and SSBs, they test you. SSBs test you for two sets of qualities. One, the qualities of mind, body, and attitudes with which you perform, or an officer performs, his professional and social duties. Getting the point? Read again. The qualities of mind, body, and attitudes. Well, as far as the body is concerned, sometimes, let us say in your group testing and outdoor task, you perform it with the body. You show the strength and capability of your body. Also, sometimes you can take a leap, or you can jump a particular ditch, or you can, scale a particular, a slant of a wall. But mostly it is mind and attitudes and the value system, the thinking, your intelligence, okay, with which you perform your professional and social duties. Then the armed forces, they provide you the toughest of the missions and toughest of conditions. You'll be hundreds and thousands of miles away from your own home and the cultural roots and the friends and the relatives. You might not be in a position to visit them off and on or participate in their all the happiness and otherwise situations where you are required to be there. The terrain, particularly in our country, is very, very tough and challenging. Sometimes the temperatures of Rajasthan to the the cold deserts of Ladakh and Thois and things like that, and to the wet jungles of Mizoram and Northeast. But despite that, you must have seen the officers, they are very, very happy. Men also, many times they say, Fauja mich mauja. So what are the things that make a person, that keeps a person happy, motivated? There are certain things. Everybody cannot be happy in every situation. There are certain things which make a person happy, which cause these things happen, and they are the part of your personality, by the way. So I conclude that SSBs are way beyond the popular beliefs of just a positive attitude and the OLQs. There are not many things which we must understand before presenting ourselves to the service selection boards. Behra, it is to be connected with the, the broader aims of the organization, job profile of the particular cadre you have applied for, right? And you also must understand what exactly it means in totality to the nation, to the society. Okay. I think I have explained this point, that it is not according to some syllabus, rather it is the ability. Okay, so SSBs are the test of your own abilities. Okay. Now, the important thing to understand is that SSBs are quite a scientific pursuit, quite a scientific system, time-tested system, and they have evolved after considering any system for that matter. It is just not the SSBs alone. Any system of selection evolves after a thorough analysis of what the organization has been established for, the micro and the macro aims, how this aim is going to be fulfilled through different cadre of people or different categories of human forces, right? And then what are the qualities that could be associated and what should be their testing methodology. If you are yourself a mechanical engineer and if you have studied something called as the OB or the organizational behavior, then you will perhaps relate that all this pursuit is called as the job analysis. The job is analyzed in terms of the micro components, and with each component, a certain set of qualities are required. Then they go for the methodology. SSBs, they have done the same thing. And that is why the system has become quite a valid and time-tested system. Okay. Now the question is, how? Let us share a few of the thoughts. And these thoughts will not only make you wiser, these thoughts will also help you sometimes answer the questions. Of course, it's not a question answer, but maybe sometimes, I mean, just for the sake of clarity of expression, I'm saying, when interviewing officer asks you a few questions about the armed forces, about its system, about the life, about the society, he is expecting you to be a little well-informed and a wise person. So if you are aware of these thoughts that were applied before the selection system was, evolved, you can answer these questions better, and you can present yourself as a wise person rather than only an informed person. So what you should be knowing, the macro and the micro objectives of the organization, the role of the cadre, and terms and conditions and the qualities associated. Now look at this slide. You are seeing two pictures, one to the left-hand side and other on the right-hand side. The one which is towards your left-hand side, okay, on the top you find above it is written from, and the one which is on your right side, it is written to. And then there is an arrow that shows, maybe a journey starting from and culminating into. Can you fill up these two words? From, to.
From remoteness to progress.
From remoteness
To, I will say, the other one would have been, the right one would have been progress, and the word for the left one.
Chalo. Let me fill it up for you. Yes, I'm not saying you're wrong. Yes, certainly you may consider it's a progress, definitely. From nature to nation. This is the journey of the human from a creature to a civilized being. Right? From, as just a part of the flora and fauna. Once upon a time, the human being also lived in nature, subsisted on the natural resources, ultimately progressed, formed societies, and settled down in this type of a living. Today, every single human individual has got a national identity. No, he has. From a human to humanity and from nature to nation. So these are the changes during the progress of the civilization. Why I'm harping on nation, there's another reason for it. If you ask any person what the armed forces do, so I think 9 out of 10 will give you the answer that, well, armed forces provide security to the nation. Without giving much of the thought that, well, what is nation, why the nation needs security, we must understand. Because the role depends, it's very, very closely connected to the nation and to the security. So I think in your class 9 social studies, you must have, read rise of nationalism in Europe and in India and this and that. So what forms the nation? How European countries, they were bound by the concept of the nation, whatever. That's a different story, but there is a nation. Let me tell you, in India, in our country, the concept of nation perhaps was not as much intense, popular, or defined as it was there in European. My, the thoughts are primarily leaning towards the European things, but a little bit of mix of Indian thoughts as well. So a nation has got a defined geographical limit. A nation has got some people living within that geographical limit. They share a common sets of values and beliefs, and they pledge allegiance to that particular nation. If you remember, we prepare our progeny or the next generation. Even you also might have, taken this pledge every time in the morning assemblies of your school, that India is our country and we all Indians are like brothers and sisters. No, this is what that we have some feeling allegiance to the nation. We call it Bharat Mata, and we are all, the children of Bharat Mata. This is the way we do not differentiate. We say that all those who live within this limits of what is called as Bharat, this land is like a mother to us. And yes, for the sake of attaining homogeneity in the lifestyle, etc., we have given ourselves a set of cultural values and beliefs. And whenever a nation is formed, the primary concern is what should be the system of governing the country. Because when we were among the lap of the nature, remember that the nature has got its own rules to govern you. Our concerns have changed. Okay. Whatever is the piece of land we are living, we are having a joint stake in that. Earlier, when we were among the nature, we didn't have anything to say, it is my own. In fact, as long as you, your troop, your tribe could hold on to that particular land, it's fine. Otherwise, a stronger group will come and they will evict you out. But that thing is not there. Today, we have stabilized, and most of the countries, they have settled to this, that, well, the piece of land is distributed, you may say, or it is decided, or it is understood. And all the people, they have got, the joint ownership of that land. But what has changed the lifestyle today is that when we were among the nature, the survival was the ultimate question. I must survive today. My progeny should survive. My race should survive. Today, we are no longer driven by hunger. We are no longer driven by the instinct to survive. Today, we have joined hands to form as a humanity, and we are together. We are trying to progress and prosper. Progress is the funda. Survival, let me tell you, if let us say somebody is going on an expedition and the team or the individual feels some problem, he feels that he should be saved, sends SOS, and the entire world, depending on how close or far they are, they come to the rescue of that person. Okay. There was, in fact, an Indian Navy commander who went on a solo expedition around the globe, and I think his vessel had faced some problem when he was quite close to Australia or New Zealand, and when he sent the SOS, okay, not only India, but even the forces of Australia and New Zealand, they responded. I heard, I can't say.
Commander Ablash Tommy.
Sorry, Arvind, something like that.
Sir, Lieutenant Commander Ablash Tommy. He's a naval pilot as well.
Okay. So you know it. I've just I've heard about it. I've not read it in great detail, and today I'm not recalling the entire detail, but I only know this much to say with conviction that Survival is just not the individual alone's concern, it is the concern of humanity, right?
Yes.
So the changes due to the nation as the nation strives to progress and prosper. And here comes the question of security. Progress and prosperity, it doesn't happen at your will. It is always conditional. And one of the conditions for progress and prosperity is to have a situation where there is a freedom from disturbances or threats. Arises here the question, what is the source or what is the gateway of and what is the nature of those threats or the disturbances? So here, the forces or the entities that cause the existence of a nation, they are themselves the gateways of threats or disturbances. The biggest source of the threat or disturbance is the human being itself, the man himself. Like you have seen that there is a geographical limit that causes a nation first. There are some people who are outside this geographical limit. There are some people who are within that. The person or the system or the nation which is outside your territorial boundaries is always having an eye on your resources. Within the geographical limits, a particular piece of land contains all the resources for your progress, prosperity, survival. And the other countries, sometimes when they perceive that those resources are greater resources, now what they in that case, they try to force their way or to grab the resources. This is where the scope of conflict comes. The stronger nation. Now here, then we become the wild. Like the wild animals, survive on the muscle power. Similarly, they survive on their power. Okay. Sometimes they thrust war. Why? Because they're greedy. Greedy for what? Greedy for their resources. Why Pakistan wants Kashmir? Bhai, unse aap pooch lijiye. Give them the example that, okay, chodo. Since I'm recording the lesson, I cannot give a little, politically loose examples. But why Pakistan wants Kashmir? It is because Kashmir has got very rich, its abundance. It's okay. Kashmir is abundant in various resources. Okay, saffron is there, beautiful tourism potential is there, minerals are there, lot many things that can add to a country's economic prosperity. Same thing happens with China. Why Saddam Hussein has attacked Kuwait? Is Kuwait something which is, but Kuwait is very rich as far as the oil rigs are concerned. Okay. So the forces outside the scope of a particular country, geographical limit of a country, out of sheer greed, they sometimes intrude their way, force their way, or wage a war so that they could defeat a country and grab its resources. Then comes the internal. People within a particular geographical limit are supposed to be living with harmony, with trust, with happiness with each other. But okay, it remains something which is far-fetched in many cases, particularly when the country is having a diversity, and no other country in the world can be an example of diversity as our own country is. I've traveled many countries. Let me tell you, the diversity which is available here is phenomenal. Racial diversity, linguistic diversity, religious diversity, diversity of terrain and temperature. Okay, it's phenomenal. Some people are not happy. Happy with plurality, and they are not happy with plurality does not mean it is to be taken. I'm only saying that Plurality does not make them happy. So they want Gorkhaland, somebody wants Khalistan, somebody wants, Nagaland. And the various things that have happened, Uttarakhand became, Chhattisgarh came into existence. But sometimes you'll find that people are not happy with the governance and the economic distribution. Let's say Naxalites. So when all negotiations fail and they become frustrated, then they show their frustration through armed struggle. So human beings are ultimate sources of the disturbance for the stability of a country. And this disturbance causes a lot of problem as far as the economic progress is concerned. But let's not forget that this economic progress is depending on the natural resources, largely, let me tell you. We are drawing these resources recklessly without any thought. We are overdrawing the resources from the mother nature, and we have caused imbalance in the ecosystem, in the flora, fauna, the environment, everywhere wherever human beings, they have, established themselves on this mother earth, they have caused, there's no country that can say that they have not caused disturbance. So what happens? The nature reacts, and sometimes this reaction is very, very violent and on a very large scale. The nation does not know what is geographical limit defined by you. So when the earthquake comes, it is on a very large scale. When tsunami comes, it doesn't know the boundaries of any particular nation. Okay, large scale devastation. Now touch your heart and tell me, if there is a scope of disturbance or threats from all these sources, internal, external, and the mother nature, can you take your progress and prosperity for granted?
Not at all.
The answer is an obvious no. So you have to have maybe the human forces, maybe the material system, whatever is there. You have to have a system to arrest, address, the sources of threats, tackle the sources of threats. Right? But since today we are economy driven people, everything becomes the investment for us. Let's say you deploy somebody on the borders to stand guard. Now that person has got his own requirement. He is not going to be there 24 hours unless his labor is rewarded. The system has to assure him and his family and his children. So security is an investment, by the way. And investment has to be reduced to minimum. Very simple principle of economics is that your investment has to be minimum and to generate maximum profit. So this is where the security system of a country, it follows a principle. What is that principle? The principle of parsimony. You know this word so very well. Kanjusi jisko Hindi mein bolte hain. Let's give some dignified word. Conservation of resources. Let's not squander the resources. Why? Because the person who is deployed in the job of security cannot contribute directly to the economic progress of the nation. Okay, so he's out of the chain of the producer and consumer. He is a pure, simple consumer. So this thought has given rise to the system of security in two ways. First, let's avoid contact with any kind of threat. Maybe by negotiations. It is just like that you go for the vaccination. If at all the contact is imminent and no negotiation is possible, then fight it as last resort. But remember, fighting is always wasteful. Fighting is always traumatic, trauma to the nation. It causes dent to the economic progress. Now, the Russia-Ukraine war is going on. One bridge that is blown off, how much it costs? One, the oil dump that is blown off. A few societies which they have been blown off, how much cost it will be to rebuild them? Okay. So we must have a system in which fighting is to be resorted only in the last when everything else fails. So this thought has given rise to the security system of the country that consists of many multi-tiered organizations, and some of them, they give the preventive security and some of them, they fight for the nation. Okay. This I've covered, in the book.
Yes, sir.
With great detail, but here it's a reminder with the explanation. In our country, you see, this is the the crisis management of the system or the hierarchy of the organizations. You may call it at the the security system rather. At the bottom, you have got the volunteers and the NGOs that provide you the preventive security. And mind you, security is a holistic concept. There are certain countries like Bhutan, if you go there, they don't believe in army and the police and the internal and external. They've got only one combined security force. Okay. Security is quite a holistic concept. Okay. Remember the events which happen like Kumbh in our country. It happens on such a large scale. You require the people to maintain the order. Otherwise, there will be chances of stampede and the chaos. And it has happened, admitted. Sometimes on certain kumbhs, I think there was one in 1951, 52, something like that. Some old gentleman was sharing. More than 3,000 people, they died in the stampede. So preventive security is to be arranged. It is arranged through volunteers, NGOs, sometimes NCC cadets, sometimes scouting groups. They volunteer and they provide it. The organization of home guards, they give the preventive security. Okay. Then comes the fighting organizations, which are fighting the certain level of threats. And as you proceed from bottom to top, you'll find that the next organization is better equipped in terms of efficiency, resources, and at the same time, they are supposed to be tackling the greater threat than the previous organization. And the hierarchy continues from civil police to armed or special police force, then to the paramilitary forces, and finally comes the armed forces. Every next organization you find is better equipped.
Yes, sir.
And is supposed to be tackling the greater degree of threat. And the greatest degree of threat is to be met or to be tackled or to be managed by the organization of the armed forces. This is what my first conclusion. That when somebody asks you, especially the interviewing officer, what do you know about the armed forces role? So it is, armed forces are the highest organizations in the security system of the country, and their methodology is fighting and not negotiation. Right? Then the person might ask you, well, sir, tell me, when you say they are the highest So in highest in which terms? So you have to say highest in terms of abilities of the people, because the ablest of the people, they take highest in terms of resources. Okay. Have you seen any time Mr. Home Guard wandering or taking a round of the city or area of his operation in a tank or a fighter or in a helicopter? Have you seen any time the civil police people here having the night vision equipment? No, because they're not supposed to be tackling that. We are very we are giving a very judicious distribution of resources, because every time it becomes a kind of an investment. Then we give the highest kind of training. Have you ever heard that a home guard has volunteered for commando training? It doesn't have any kind of. So there's no point in giving commando training to a home guard, right? So armed forces, they are having the highest status as far as the security system of the country is concerned in terms of abilities, resources, training, and efficiency. They are supposed to be tackling the highest degree of threat where no organization, which is beyond the capacity of the other organizations. Something is changing as far as the perspective is concerned.
Yes, sir, a lot.
A lot. Good. Now, we are going to have today the second next conclusion, that is what is the officer's cadre. Sometimes I say jokingly, the interviewing officer has got certain questions which match. I won't say they have been borrowed, but they sometimes they match as if Mr. Gabbar Singh is what he is asking. He has asked in that movie to his team, "Kya soch ke aaye the?" है ना? So interviewing officer might ask you, yes, you are here. आपने armed forces के बारे में, but all information, but all did you think will be the role, है ना? चलो. So any armed forces are like any other organization, and the armed forces, they share certain features of any other organization, and there are certain things which are exclusive. Okay, they include all the features of any organization. Mind you, whenever the human efforts are combining, whatever entity emerges to keep them in a system, that is called as the organization, right? Organization is what? Primarily, it's a human force. You may call it as the cadre. And there is two sets of people. Those who are responsible for results and those who are responsible for efforts. Call them officers, men. Call them leaders, call them followers. Leaders perform the managerial functions and the followers perform the muscular functions. Menial, I won't say today, otherwise menial sometimes it is taken to be in derogatory sense. Muscular functions. Let me make it a little more clear in terms of concepts. In management, we say that you have to plan your work and you have to work your plan. So very simple it is. So plan the work is done by some specialists. Similarly, working the plan is also done by some, if not specialists, you may say some committed force. Okay. So there has to be the committed forces for planning the work and working the plan. Your father is, a defense officer.
Yes.
And I think you have got enough of exposure, and you must have seen people wearing different types of uniforms or different uniforms, Army, Navy, Air Force. But there's one thing which is common. You can identify any person about his association with either the leaders or the followers just by seeing rank guided officers. They have got their ranks on their placed on their shoulders. responsible for the results. Men, they have got on their sleeves
Yes.
here because they are supposed to be
Carry
performing
out.
the carry out or to, muscular functions, right? Anyway, this is the feature of any other organization. Something is explosive. General feature, okay, that is armed forces too are like any other human force and any, that whenever you have got a human force, you require the leaders and followers both. So this is common to the armed forces also. But what is exclusive? That performance and the success of the mission depends on the quality of leadership. Please remember that these are the fighting organization wherein you are killing the enemy or you are being killed by the enemy. Both of the parties, they are committed to killing each other. It's a question of somebody's life and death. When you are fighting to this extent, then what is more important or what is most important? I'm correcting myself. Most important is your morale. You do not die in people, they don't say it's an insult. You do not die in pursuit of your duty. You court death. And how a soldier or how an officer, how the troops can court death? It is when their morale is highest. There are many features, there are many things which decide the morale, the factor of morale. One of them is quality of leadership. See here. And I think this is also, you'll see in a form of some page there in the book.
Yes.
I'm more
Yeah,
afraid
sir.
of an army of 100 sheep led by a lion than an army of 100 lions led by a sheep. This is what is leadership and morale. Okay. Now from here, we are concluding something about the cadre of officers, which is going to be your dream career. And cadre, that is, an officer is a leader of his troops who performs all the managerial functions, and there's this plethora of functions, who is responsible for the results of all his actions, omissions, and decisions. You have applied for the cadre of officers, and you must know what is the function of the cadre of officers. Okay, you must understand what are the tasks or the functional profile, what are the terms, and where you all posted. On this note, we are going to call it a day. मेरा ख्याल है कि आज we have just understood, and tomorrow in the preamble we are going to focus on how the system tests you for all these tasks, your capability to perform all these tasks. But I'm giving you a homework. It will add to your perspective. It will make you wiser. Captain Rahuraman's speech is available on YouTube and Netflix also. And the title is Unity in Diversity. It's about 10 minutes speech. He's not speaking anything as far as the selection is concerned. He's giving he's sharing his thoughts on a different topic, that is unity in diversity. And the armed forces are the biggest host of this concept, unity in diversity. However, through the various allegories and examples, the gentleman has given enough of insight to a common man into the nature of the job, the challenges, and life in general in the armed forces. Right? Let me tell you that there are so many examples in this speech, which I'll be connecting it. When I'll be giving my prescriptions on TAT, WAT, and such like things in the techniques. These things will be included. So watch him very, very carefully and try to reach the essence of what is he. I mean, what is his intention, frankly speaking.